In this section, we want to take a look at demand forecasting. So we're going to select an item by going to Items, and I need to find something that has an assembly BOM here. So I'm going to sort this assembly BOM column by descending, and we're going to use this 1953W. So what I want to do is, first of all, go down and just make sure that this item actually is set up to do, it's set up to be replenished by an assembly, and it's assembled to stock. We're going to slide down to the planning area here. And for our first illustration, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this to lot for lot. And then I'm going to escape out of here. And what we'll do now is we'll actually set up an assembly order for this. a demand forecast for this, and then do planning. So we'll exit out of here. And what we want to do is go to demand forecasts. And we don't have one here, so what we're going to do is we're going to set up a new demand forecast. And I'm just going to call this NBD-1. And this is a test. And then what I want to do is actually open up this demand forecast. So there should be nothing here, obviously, because it's brand new. And a couple of things that we need to look at to begin with. And the first thing is that this is set up to view by day. And of course, viewing by day is not exactly what I think is ideal for forecasting. So I'm going to change this to month. The next thing is that there are different types of forecasts here. So I can forecast sales items, which are obviously my top level items, components, or both. So I'm going to tell it that this is a sales forecast that I have here. And if you notice, when I switch to month, I have July, August, September, October, and so on and so forth. So what I do is just slide down to my 1953W here. And next to it, in July, I'm going to say that I want to produce 10 of these. Oops. I'm going to produce 10 of these. And then in August, I'm going to produce 20. And then in September, I'm going to produce 30. So I now have a demand forecast out here to produce this 1953W, and we can take a look at exactly how this functions. So we'll exit out of our demand forecast, and we're going to go out to the planning worksheet. And in my planning worksheet, what I want to do is I want to prepare the planning worksheet and calculate a regenerative plan here. And so what I'm going to have is a starting date, and I have today's date, and I have a horizon out here. I'm going to forecast this out through the end of October. I'm going to use my demand forecast that I just created a moment ago, and I'm going to do this just for my 1953W, and just to make sure that everything works exactly as we want to start with here, I'm going to click off on MRP, and I'm just going to do the planning schedule. So when I click OK, this goes out and generates the plan, and voila, it brings up our orders. It has on July 1st, which is the date in which I actually planned that, 10 to be produced, 20 in August, and 30 in September. So this has gone out and done exactly what we would expect to do. It also puts some messages out here. So if I look at this attention, it tells me that the starting date is before the work date, which is obviously the work date is today. But the starting date is for this is at the beginning of the month, because I'm planning these monthly. When I do that, it puts everything on the first of the month. So July had not been planned, and it brought this order in with a starting date of July 1st. So when you're first getting started with planning, if you use lot for the planning method on your items, and you're using forecast, then your forecast numbers should come in here as pure numbers, and there's really no noise or anything that is interjected into the system for you. So I want to go back to the item card. I want to make a change to the way that the item card is set up. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to change this from lot to lot to a fixed reorder point. And when I change it, I already have a fixed reorder point here of 5 and a reorder quantity of 1. And so we'll use this parameter now to run planning, and you'll see the net result is exactly the same, well, almost exactly the same. However, there's a lot of noise that gets introduced into the forecast itself, or into the planning worksheet itself. So if I go back out here and I calc a regenerative plan, and I tell it to use my forecast, and again, remember my forecast was 10, 20, 30. And it's just for this one item that I have here. I run my plan. Now, the interesting thing here is that if you take a look at how this actually is functioned, it's created 3 orders in July. The first one is for a quantity of 6. And if it says attention here, and if I drill into this, it is bringing up my reorder point of 5 plus the 1 that I've told it that I have to order in advance. So it's bringing up to 6 just to get me even to where I need to be, because I didn't have the minimum quantity on hand. I hadn't met my quantity was 0 to start with. Then notice the next 2 here, it's doing 4 and 6. So it's always ordering 6 at a time, because that's the way every time it orders, I'm telling it that that's its ordering control. It knows the order is for 10, so it reduces the 10 by 6, and the actual MSP order is for 4. So if you look at these entries, this is for 10, this is for 20. It actually reduced my quantity of 20 on my demand, because I've already told it that every time I order, I'm going to be ordering 6. And here, 24 and 6 is 30. So here's my 10, here's my 20, here's my 30. So the net result here is exactly the same, with the exception of the fact that I have an additional 6 because of the initial order. When I first went out to do this, it looked and said, hey, the inventory is 0, so I need to add 6. Boom. Then from that point on, it actually carried out my forecast exactly as I would anticipate it would, except that it's introduced a lot of noise here in terms of the way that it's actually done the calculation. So I suggest that when you first start doing this, you use lot for lot. It's a very simplistic way to look at it. Net result here is the same, but there's a lot of noise that gets introduced. A couple of things to look at here. One is that there's a flag here that says MSP order, and you can see there are 3 of these flagged. Now, these are the actual orders that came from planning. These were the issue for the 10, 20, and 30 units that we talked about. If I were to check the boxes and carry out the action messages for this right now, this would create an assembly order for each of these, and I mean, it would work just fine, but instead of having 10, 20, 30, 40, I would have 8 orders instead of 3. So what I'm going to do is just delete all of these. Well, I'll just select more here, and I'll pick all of them, and then I'll just delete these lines. And now what I'm going to do is go back out to this item very quickly. I'm going to change the parameters here again from what it was, what I had it set at with fixed reorder policy. I'm going to go back to lot for just a moment. And now we're going to run planning again. And when we're doing our planning worksheet, just to make life easy, in many cases, I know people are kind of lazy and they like to run MSP and MRP at the same time. This is the planned schedule. This is material replenishment. And I always suggest that people basically turn off this when you start doing this to begin with, because then you'll just see that you won't get any noise from anything besides your production plan. And in this particular case, it really doesn't matter because they're all the same. And as you can see, this has come in and it says 10, 20, 30, 40, and so on and so forth. And I'm going to check each one of these. And what I really want to do is show you now, when you have something in here that you actually want to finish, all you have to do is go up to Process. And anything that has this flag set for action message, if I pick Carry Out Action Message, this will bring up this screen. It'll let me decide whether I want to make assembly orders, production orders, purchase orders, perhaps all of the above. And I can simply click OK here. This now has cleared my planning worksheet. And if I go out to my assembly orders, I need to search for those. I can go out to assembly orders, and here are my 10, 20, and 30 that are sitting out to be produced July, August, and September, just as we had done with our demand forecast. So now that these have actually been processed, if I exit out of here and I go back to the planning worksheet and I do a prepare, calculate regenerative plan, and if I come in here and I attempt to do this again, so I just bring these back in, I click this off, I drop down to the bottom, and I'm just doing this one item just as I did before, and I click OK. That doesn't bring anything in because it's already processed them, and those quantities are 100% met for January, February, and March, or July, August, and September. Are completely met, and consequently it brings virtually nothing into the planning worksheet. So the next thing that I want to demonstrate for you here, I'm going to exit out of here for a moment. I'm going to go to assembly orders, and I'm going to take these 3 assembly orders that I have, and I'm just going to open these up, and I'm going to delete them very quickly. I want to get rid of the orders. When I rerun planning, these should come back up again, and we should actually see the whole thing come back into the planning worksheet just as it had before. So this fulfillment will be gone, the planning worksheet will run again, and we'll bring all of these items back in. So I'll exit out of here, I'll go back to the planning worksheet. I'll prepare, run my regenerative plan. I'm going to run the forecast that I want here. So I'll bring this forecast up, I'll uncheck this. I'll run down to the bottom, make sure it's just for my one item again. I click OK, and of course these come back in just as we expected, 10, 20, and 30 in the various months that we're looking for in July, August, and September. Now, the reason that this is all working really nicely here is, of course, there isn't any noise on this side either, and of course we can, and when you really actually start running this, you will find some noise here. This item has 0 quantity on hand, which means there's really nothing to create any noise here. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to delete these again. So select more, highlight all of them, and delete them. And what I'm going to do here is we're going to do 2 different things that will and basically show you how this can affect your planning. Well, the first thing that we're going to do is that I'm going to go out to the item journal. And on today's date, I'm going to make a positive inventory adjustment for 5 of these. So I'm going to put 5 of these in inventory, no location. I'm just going to post this. And now we actually have 5 of these on hand. So the journal posted successfully. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back out and run my planning worksheet and prepare a regenerative plan. I'm going to bring up my forecast. I'm going to click this off and make sure my item number is still here, and I'm going to click OK. And lo and behold, look what it's done. It has removed 5 from the first item because I already have 5 on hand. And so in the month of January, or excuse me, in the month of July, I wanted to have 10 of these to manufacture. I already have 5 in inventory, and so the program has now reduced my 10 quantity by 5. And if I go to this attention piece and take a look at it here, it says demand forecast now is only 5 because I have 5 of these that are already on hand. So when you're bringing this up and you see something like this happen, you should be aware of exactly what it is. So I'm going to do one more little demonstration for you here. I'm going to delete these one more time. So select more and select them all, manage and delete. And what we're going to do now is actually go out and create a sales order for some of these. So we're going to put some more demand in the system. So I'm going to go to sales and purchasing, sales orders, and I have one here that looks like it's blank pretty much, so I'm just going to open this up. And actually I don't like the dates on this, so I'm going to close this up and I'm going to create a new one. So I'm going to pick new. Those are all back in 2020. So what I'm going to do here is put in a customer code. And what I want to do is actually change these dates to 08, 1021. And let's make this we can leave the date there, that's fine. I'm going to make this 080121. And we're looking for a 910 delivery here. I don't really like that, so what I'm going to do is change this to 081021. And I actually want all of these to be the same, so 081021. So all of my dates are now the same on this. And what I'm going to do is drop down to this line. I'm going to put one of these on a sales order so we can see what happens when we put, let's put 10 of them on a sales order. And let's just slide across here and look at some shipping dates for this. Let's see if dates are displayed here. Yep. Okay. Planned delivery date is 7/12. I'm going to just change this to 081021 so that all of this demand is out into the month of August. And now what I want to do is go run my, oops, I think I need to do one more thing here first, sorry. Let me go back in here and release this sales order. So this sales order is currently open, and we want to actually release it. So pick release, and I can see now that it is released down here. So now I'm going to go back, and I'm actually going to rerun my planning one more time, and we'll see what affected. So I'm going to planning worksheet. I'm going to prepare, run my regenerative plan. Everything should be set the same. I just need to put my forecast in here. And I'll set this little guy up to do what it needs to do. Same number. Click OK. And notice now that it has actually gone out and reduced the quantities that we were supposed to have in August here. It's actually, it still has 20, but it's split it into 2 different lines, where one is for the demand of the sales order that's here, and then the other is to fill the remaining demand that we had. So as the system is generating more and more transactions in the system, the planning that you can see and the results that come in here get really, they become complicated to understand what's really going on. So a couple of things. It's very important that you play around with this enough so that you understand what it's doing. And then as it begins to actually operate, unless you want to spend a lot of time looking at these every time you do your production runs, you need to trust the fact that it's doing these things repeatedly. And you can see from here exactly what this is doing. This is my forecast, which was on the first of the month, and here is my 10 for the order that was out later on in the month. So I can see that this particular item here matches up with the date that I put on that sales transaction, and it has reduced the amount of this one by the 10. So for simplicity's sake, if I want to, I can take this demand that I had originally, I can turn this into 20, and I can go down here to this particular line that I have, and I can actually delete this line, and I now have my forecast back exactly where it was. Instead of having 2 assembly orders for 10 each, I now have an assembly order for 20, and then I can process these. So I have control over how I'm going to actually have these orders, these assembly orders, entered. We can control the behavior of this planning worksheet a bit by going on and taking a look at the manufacturing setup. So in the manufacturing setup page, there are a couple things that we can do. If you notice, it says there's a field there. It says combine MSP and MRP. And when we've been doing our planning worksheets, they've both been checked. If I uncheck this, then they won't both come in any longer. I can also set my current demand to whatever my current demand forecast is here. And when I go out and run planning now, the behavior of the planning worksheet changes a bit. So let me go back in here, and what I'll do is just delete these quickly. And I'll select all the lines and pick Manage and Delete. And we'll create a new regenerative program here. And when I do this, you'll see a couple of things that we've been looking at and now appear differently. So first of all, both of these are no longer checked. It's just doing MSP. And so I can manually pick which one I want, and it'll only run them one at a time as opposed to running them together. And the second thing that's important to note is it automatically filled in my forecast for me. I've been picking that each time, which is something that you probably want to do if you're using multiple forecasts. Because you can have multiple forecasts out here for different product lines. But if you want one to default, you can set it up in the manufacturing setup.